think trauma is what happened to you. They think trauma is something severe on the outside that happened to someone. It's something that you went through. That's not what trauma is. Trauma is a wound on the inside of the person after they've gone through something that left that wound. Because
Mhm.
two people can go through the exact same thing and come through completely different. The big trouble spot with people in addressing that is when someone becomes traumatized, something that it's like a stray dog that just runs in after is the feeling of shame. The feeling of
Mhm.
shame and self-blame as if it's your fault, and it's not. Trauma is never your fault.
Welcome to Silent No Longer, where your past is a chapter and not the whole book. I'm Mesha, and I'm so glad you're here. This is a safe, judgment-free space for anyone healing from toxic or abusive relationships. Through faith and healing, I found my way forward, and now my purpose is to help others do the same. My hope is that you'll be reminded that you are not alone, your past does not define you, and healing is possible. If you are ready to take the next step, you can learn more in my book, Behind Closed Doors, schedule a free clarity call with me, or explore neurotransformation therapy coaching, now available to support you in rewiring limited beliefs and creating lasting change. Welcome back to Silent No Longer, and today I am joined by Danielle, and Danielle is a childhood trauma survivor and is now an author, coach, and speaker. Thank you for being here today, Danielle.
Oh, thank you for having me, Misha.
Can you just start out by telling us a little bit about your story?
Oh, it's a big, long, messy one. My story. Ah, what aspect do I start with? Well, I'll start with where I'm at right now. I'm in a very good place now, not perfect because there's no such thing. But I have been married to my husband for 46 years. We just celebrated our 46th anniversary February 2026. And he is a huge part of my healing journey. I suffered a lot of childhood trauma, some that I was aware of and some that I was not aware of until I went into counseling to write my first book. That's when my counselor unpacked some things that I didn't even know were a thing. They were just everyday normal to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of how I learned that you can have trauma and not even know it.
Yeah.
So I had a whole lot of it. It started real early with childhood emotional neglect, which I didn't know that until a couple of years ago. That's what it's called. People have it, but don't know that's what it's called. And you recognize it by how it manifests in your life. I learned about it through a psychologist, Dr. Janice Webb, who wrote a book, Running on Empty, where she unpacks it. And the big difficulty with identifying childhood emotional neglect is because it's not something that happened that you can point to. It's something that didn't happen that you needed to happen. So it's a big empty space. And going looking for empty spaces is not something that people do.
Yeah.
So that was part of my story. And then other things piled on top of it. Being humiliated by my teacher when I was 6 years old in school, and public shaming and public humiliation, bullies, deaths of multiple people in my life, publicly being rejected in front of the entire church, attacking me through of my identity through my name. So in 1988, I had legally changed my first name to Danielle. That is not the name that I was given at birth. So it's a great big pile. By the time I was 18, I was an emotional basket case.
Mm-hmm.
I was just a raw emotion going everywhere, having no idea what I was doing, how to live. I was just in complete survival mode and didn't even know that was a thing. How
Mm-hmm.
I lived to that age is really quite miraculous. I give God all the glory. And I had shared with you, Misha, in our pre-interview about this road trip I went on when I was 18. And it happened because I had an older brother who had gone out to California and came back. And for some unknown reason, I felt like I had to do that. I don't know. I had some really warped preoccupation with this brother of mine, like I idolized him. And I look back now and I go, why? I don't even know why. I didn't even have a reason why. I think it was misplaced from my dad had died, and then I had a trauma with my other brother, and so I probably took everything and put it on the other one maybe? I'm not even sure. Trauma doesn't make sense. Trauma responses don't always make sense. We do
Nope.
dumb things. I love those old Geico commercials. We do dumb things. Yes, we do. All of us do. But on this
Mhm.
road trip that I did go on, I was driven. I mean, there's an old Led Zeppelin song called Going to California also, which I think that was part of my preoccupation with I had to go to California. Like there was like a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. I was so driven to do this. It was very unnatural. I
Mhm.
had a friend who was gonna go with me, then backed out. Then she was gonna go with me again, and then she backed out. And then I had someone else who's going to go with me, and they backed out. So I put an ad in the newspaper,
Oh.
and someone responded, and I met with them in, a nicer part of town, so it'd be safe in public. But it wasn't. An ambulance had to come and take her away. And so then after that, I'm like, forget this. I'm going by myself. And this was back in 1978. No cell phones, just a single woman just gonna take off. Not not the brightest thing to do, but I was gonna do it because I was just really driven. But God stepped in and saved me. I was going to the local community college, and I was in the lounge because I used to smoke way back then. I was in there smoking, and this girl I'd never met walks in and says, "You know anyone who wants to go to California?" I'm like, "I do." She goes, "I'm serious." I'm like, "You have no idea how serious I am." And it ended up that she and I were the 2 who went out to California. We were gone for 6 weeks. I should have been dead a couple of times. And if I didn't keep a journal of what happened on that trip, I wouldn't remember because I spent most of it wasted by either drinking or smoking weed or taking chemicals. So, because that was my coping, was all the
Mhm.
any chemical thing I could do to numb was good, and I was
Yeah.
very high functioning with it, and to the point that one time we had been driving for 16 hours and doing all those things while we're driving. So stupid. Oh god, thank you, I'm not dead. I was driving on the wrong way of a one-way street at 3 o'clock in the morning, and a policeman pulls me over, does not arrest me, gives me a warning, escorts me to a place so I can sleep in my car. If that isn't a miracle, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
And that was just one of the things that happened, that I should have been dead. I mean, the way we were driving and, anyways, it's a really funny story, and it's in my first book, Emerging with Wings, where I wrote my story. It's like a love story. I have a hero, a villain, and a person overcoming. So it takes you through, you know, things to emerge happy at the end. It's not graphic, it's not triggering. I've read books like that I wish I could unread. So I don't have a book like that. You don't
Mhm.
have to wish you unread it. So that story is what really started everything that I do though, because I wrote that. And as I said, I put myself into counseling and my counselor unpacked half of that book. I thought I'm already healed of all my trauma and I'm going to just write about it now. Nope. She unpacked that. So then I'm writing this book. Half of the book is what she just unpacked. So talk about raw. It's raw, but I healed while she took me through it because I had
Mhm.
dealt with so many other things before that. But the real tension there was a lot of people didn't know this stuff. I had not known this before. And so it's in my book and I'm going to put it out there for people to read. My greatest fear was just someone would actually read the book.
Mhm.
And they did. I wanted them to, but I didn't because I mean,
Yeah.
my best friend didn't know stuff in the book. So it was really scary to do that. But as I put it out there, people were texting me and emailing me and responding to me going, "You too? I'm not alone.
Mhm.
You too? Really?" And then there's a quote from that book that's gone viral, been translated into different languages, and people have it in their books and PowerPoints and everything, which was my epiphany that trauma is personal. I didn't understand what trauma was. And I have discovered the vast majority of people do not understand what trauma is. People
Mhm.
think trauma is what happened to you. They think trauma is something severe on the outside that happened to someone. It's something that you went through. That's not what trauma is. Trauma is a wound on the inside of the person after they've gone through something that left that wound. Because
Mhm.
two people can go through the exact same thing and come through completely different.
Yeah.
I have a friend who is a trauma coach, and he goes on site with FEMA and things like that to go and help people on site in the middle of catastrophes. And I learned from him and in other studies that when they show up on site when something has just happened, the people who are the most deeply impacted are the ones that are sitting completely silent.
Mhm.
The ones who are crying, the ones who are responding in some way, they are still coherent enough to be in tune with something went terribly wrong. The other
Yeah.
ones, they have just checked out. They have checked out and they need someone to go in there and find them and bring them out again. And that's the wound that was left behind. And that's what needs to be addressed is that wound. And the big trouble spot with people in addressing that is when someone becomes traumatized, something that it's like a stray dog that just runs in after is the feeling of shame. The feeling of
Mhm.
shame and self blame as if it's your fault. And it's not. Trauma is never your fault. I don't care
Yeah.
what you did. I don't care if you were in the wrong place at the wrong time and you made all these wrong decisions. Trauma is an involuntary internal wound that you can't do to yourself and you can't refuse to have it happen. It's just something that does happen. But we can take a hold of after we find out to get healed. And that's where our power is after the light gets turned on and we have a clue.
Yeah. I loved how you just broke it all down because it's absolutely true. I never realized that growing up because I had so much trauma and I was just angry because I had so much shame. Because my whole life I was like, why couldn't I change anything? I could have changed this and I could have changed that. And if I would have, asked somebody or told somebody what was going on in my life, maybe they could have fixed it. But
It's not a thing. It's
yeah, it's
really
not.
especially children. Childhood trauma is different than adult trauma, and
Mhm.
that because it's not just in the timeline.
Right.
The thing that makes childhood trauma different and somewhat more intense, I don't know, adult trauma can be pretty intense too. It's
Yeah.
it's different. What makes it
Mhm.
different is another word for childhood trauma is developmental trauma. See, a child's not done. They don't have a whole brain. The brain doesn't finish forming until you're 25. You don't have a whole brain. I was married with 2 kids and I didn't have a whole brain.
Yeah. Same.
My daughter
Maybe
tells
3
me this. She
kids.
goes, "Mom, you didn't even have a whole brain." And it's true. The illustration I like to use to help people understand the difference between it, which it's not perfect, no illustration is. Let's say you're making cupcakes. You mixed up the batter and you get those little paper things and you put them in one of those cupcake tins. You put the little paper things in for the cupcakes. And then you take the batter and you put it in each one of the little cupcakes things.
Mhm.
And then you go to put it in the oven, but you hit the oven and you drop the tray on the floor. So what's going to happen to all those little paper cups? Well, there might be a couple that are just fine right where you put them. There might be one that it's splashed up on the outside. There might be one that's completely upside down, but in the tin. Might be one that's on the floor. And you can clean all that up and put it back together, but it's not the same as when you started.
Right. Yeah, that's good.
Whereas adult trauma, that's like childhood trauma. Adult trauma is you successfully got those cupcakes in the oven and they are in the oven. The timer goes off and you're so excited for the cupcakes that you open the oven, you grab the tray, but you forgot your oven mitts. And so you're
Mhm.
like, "Ah!" And you drop the tray on the floor. And what happened to those cupcakes? Some might be completely fine. One might be cracked, but still in place. One might have flipped upside down. It's still intact, but it's upside down. One might have fallen out and just gone to absolute pieces. And the cleanup of that is completely different.
Yeah.
And it's not a perfect illustration, but I think it shows us the difference. One can be just as devastating as another, but it's devastating in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah. What helped me with healing from my childhood trauma was realizing that I wasn't living my story. I was living in somebody else's story, and I was just a piece of
Mm,
their story. So I didn't really have control over what happened. And when I realized that, that was a game changer for me. Because yeah.
yeah, and when we're a kid, we don't know. What happened to me
Mhm.
when I was 6 years old, I never told anyone till I was all grown up, because
Mhm.
I grew up in a time where the adults had all the power, the children did not, and you don't tell on an adult. No one's gonna believe you
Yeah.
anyways.
Yep.
I mean, my very first coaching client, oh, bless her soul. My very first coaching client, part of her story was she had things happen to her that the adults around her dismissed. She did
Mhm.
speak up about some things, but they dismissed them as nothing. And so her coming into coaching and me validating those things, I'm like, no, that was wrong. That was not something you deserved. They should have responded differently, and validating the truth. It changed her perspective in things. And one of the side effects of her getting coaching on top of dealing with her trauma and being able to move forward is she, without trying, lost about 15 or 20 pounds.
Mhm.
And she told me, I think I was just so full of tears. I'm like, it was just getting rid of that. That was a side effect. It
Yeah.
was just a positive side effect. And she thanked me, and her granddaughter came and found me. We were at a church function, and her granddaughter would come with her from time to time, and her granddaughter, was like 18 or 20 or something. This lady is, older, and, she came to me, she said, "Thank you so much for helping my grandma. She's a completely different person." I'm like, "That's one thing for someone to write a review when you have coached them, but for a family member, for them to come to you and say that,
Yeah.
that was." And that was my very first coaching client.
That's awesome. Yeah, I don't think people realize how much trauma is stored in your body.
Mhm,
Yeah, I was talking to, somebody a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about that because 'cause he's been through so much trauma in his life, and he's like, "Now I have fibromyalgia." And he's like, "I know it's just caused from all the trauma, and I haven't let go of it all yet." And I said,
mhm.
"Well, that's good that you recognize that because it's
Yes.
exactly what it is," you know? I didn't realize that, um, I had no clue that that's what trauma would do to you. 'Cause I've
Oh, it can
always been in pain, and I was in a car accident, and I got so depressed and after it, and I was going through all this trauma along with it and dealing with my past trauma at the same time, and I just couldn't get through the pain
mm.
until I moved out of the house that I was living in because that's where all the trauma in my life happened was in the house that I was living in, and then once I moved, it's almost like it wasn't in front of my face all the time,
Oh, yeah.
so I was able to, kinda work through it, and
Mhm,
after I moved away, then that's when the pain stopped.
mhm.
So, yeah,
Yeah, people don't
pain.
realize what trauma can do to your body. It
Mhm,
kills people. The first time I said that, I felt very self-conscious about it, like I was being over dramatizing, but
mhm,
I'm not. Because trauma kills people. It gives people cancer. It gives people diabetes. It gives people heart disease. It gives people fibromyalgia. It gives people all kinds of things. And that's because the body keeps the score. That's the title of a book out there, but it's true.
mhm.
It's stored in the body. They can do brain scans and see it in your brain, but we don't generally go and get our brain scanned.
Right.
So you can't see trauma on other people. It's like 1 in 6 people is said to have current trauma, be dealing with currently dealing with trauma. But you put 6 people in a room, you're not gonna get, "Oh, that's the one that has trauma, that one doesn't, that one has trauma." It's not a thing.
It seems like that number would be, like, 1 out of 2.
Well, I believe everybody has experienced a trauma
Yeah.
exposure, which is an opportunity to be traumatized. And I say that because everyone went through COVID. And some people were horrendously affected, and some people made good use of it. So
Mhm.
it depends. Trauma is personal. It, it,
Yeah.
it is very personal.
Mhm. So I have to ask because I'm very intrigued. Why did the ambulance take your friend away or that girl away that you were gonna take on the road trip?
She was having some kind of mental breakdown.
Okay. I was like, "What happened?"
She had some kind of mental breakdown. I don't remember. It was a long time ago. I was 18.
Mhm.
I'm 67. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But she was having some sort of a mental breakdown and coming unglued or something. I was like, "Oh, no."
Yeah, you said it was a bad part of town, so I was like, what
No, it
kind of
was a
stories
good
we
part of
have?"
town. I went
Oh, it
to
was a
the
good part.
place where it was where, the rich people lived.
Mhm. Oh,
I went to
okay.
where the rich people lived and went to a restaurant down in the village where all the rich people lived. So, but that's, no, didn't go according to plan.
Well, I'm glad you survived your road trip. It sounds like it was pretty eventful.
It was. Now the story's in my book if anyone is interested in the whole story.
Yeah, most definitely. Take a look at that because sounds pretty fulfilled and interesting, that's for sure. Okay,
As
so
is chapter 3 is, titled Michael, which is my husband's name. As I
mhm,
said, he is a huge part of my healing journey. He was given to me by God in a very supernatural way, which is in the book because it's
mhm.
if I didn't live it, I wouldn't believe it kind of thing.
Yeah,
It's like you can't make this stuff up kind of stuff, you know? But he was my first encounter with unconditional love because I didn't know it was a thing. Love is
yeah,
always
no.
conditional. It's always I love you when, I love you if. If you don't do this, then I'm going to stop loving you. And I was so used to people throwing me away, I expected it everywhere I went.
Which I wanna point out is not love.
No, it's not. It's
Because yes,
conditional
that's
love
what
and it's toxic.
yes, I that's all I've known too, and it's really funny because I had a friend ask me, they're like, "Well, didn't you love them?" And I was like, I don't think I know what love is. I don't think I've ever really been loved because the way that I look at it is somebody who loves you don't treat you bad.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I wanna point out that that's not love, so
Right. In a podcast interview a year or so ago, uh, the host and I were talking about love and what is love and what is love and is it unconditional acceptance. And so we kind of talked our way through, and that's where I came up with how I define love. I
mhm,
define love as love sees value, sees that the other person, whoever you're saying you love, you see value in that person. And then the second thing is you will act in their best interest. Doesn't mean you let them do anything because not everything they wanna do is in their best interest. Like, if you have a little kid that wants to run out into the street, you don't wanna let them run out into the street because you don't want them to get hit by a car. So you act in their best interest. With humans, it's not always perfect, but when someone is you can tell if they're trying to act in the best interest and maybe they dropped the ball, and
yeah,
there's those that they don't care. And if they're all about themselves and they want to manipulate you, that's no. But learning that unconditional love is a real thing and we deserve it. And that's how what God created us for. That's how He loves us. And
mhm,
that's not even how that's portrayed at a lot of churches. But I'm currently working on my next book. And so I'm going to be unpacking that in my book partially. It's about connection and how we were designed to need connection to connect with ourselves, to connect with other people, and to connect with society, connect with our creator. We were created for connection, and disconnection is a problem. And people are seeing that now with social media and AI and how it's disconnecting people from their relationships, disconnecting them from reality. And it's a real problem. So my book is called Hungry for More. I don't have the
mhm,
subtitle yet because I'm still working on it, but it's about that inherent need and design to be connected. And we deserve that because that's how we were designed.
mhm.
and the power of choice. That's the chapter I was recently working on is the choice is a design that we were given. Animals in that they don't have the same kind of choice that humans have. And when you are in a relationship with someone, it has to be through choice. If it's not through choice, it's not a true, genuine, joyful connection. If there's coercion or forcing involved, it's not a true, genuine connection.
Right. So, how did you and your husband meet? What's the story?
Oh, like I said, it's a whole chapter. But we met the first time in eighth grade. We went to the same school. We had a class together and we had an assignment that we had to go to the library to do together. We were reading some old Elizabethan play or some dumb thing. But in it, he read the one part, I read the other part, and the character he read called my character Cabbage as part of this. I don't remember what the name of this thing was we read. But the rest of the year, he would call me Cabbage and we would laugh. So it was this entertaining, fun thing. And then we didn't know each other again till we re-met at a church after my road trip. I'm like, hey, I know that guy. So I went up to him and said hello. And that was the beginning of re-meeting him. So,
And how did he help you heal?
oh, through our relationship, that first day I don't remember how long, I think that was in the spring. And it wasn't until August 6th of that year that we went out the first time. We went
Mhm.
to some revival at some church. Well, we went out that first day, the 6th of August, and we got engaged September 1st. And the events of that less than a month are really quite mind boggling when you're living through that, going, I still read it and it's even how he proposed to me. It's laughable. He proposed, I accepted. We sat down on a blanket, just both of us kind of staring off into space, wondering what we were doing
Yeah.
because we felt like God was telling us to do this. And we had never lived like that before. It was very
Mhm.
strange and bizarre to us. And so we kept it a secret, but then other people knew. And we're like, how do you know? And because they were telling us, and we're like, how do you know? Well, God told me. I'm like, it was frustrating. It was validating, but frustrating at the same
Yeah.
time. Like, I'm keeping this a secret. How come you know? But then when we finally told his parents that, we were going to get married and they asked us if we loved each other, and we paused, we looked at each other and went, I guess so. But it was kind of like an arrangement. And I'm very thankful for it because I didn't have my whole brain. Remember, I said I was married with two kids before I didn't have a whole brain then. I was 21 when I got married. Us. Uh, yeah, I was freshly 21 when we got engaged, but we got married the following February. So it wasn't even a whole year. And we weren't going to have kids. We were in agreement with that. With all the drugs I did, the doctor said I couldn't have kids anyway. They said he couldn't have kids. We're like, good, we don't want kids anyways. We don't want to screw them up.
Mhm.
Except for God had a different idea.
Yes, he always does.
And so he put it in my heart that didn't want kids because I was terrified of the idea of them. One, I'd been traumatized, didn't know how to raise kids. I'd done all those drugs. I didn't want to have one that had 12 arms and 13 legs. And and then it's like, what if they lived? I was no, it's just no. On my honeymoon, the Lord put it in my heart that I wanted them. I'm like, what is going on? So I confessed to my husband that I had this feeling, felt like God told us to sit down and actually pray for them. So we did. And then my daughter was born on Christmas that year.
Hmm.
Married in February, first child born Christmas. And through this whole thing, man, pregnancy and I did not get along. As I said, I was a basket case. I was a basket case when I got married. My husband married a basket case, but he loved me anyway. I tried to get rid of him during that between the 6th and the 1st. I tried to get rid of him. I cut it off. We got back together. I told him all my deep, dark, ugly secrets so that he would throw me away like everybody else had done, and he didn't. And I was so puzzled that he wasn't throwing me away like everyone else did. Everyone else threw me away. How come you're not throwing me away? What's wrong with you? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then when I was pregnant, oh, the hormones and my uncomplete brain, I that basket case, if you could put an exponent on there to the 10th power or something, oh my goodness. I would tell people all the time, my husband deserves a trophy for staying with me
Yeah.
because he just loved me through all of that. And I was astounded every single time. I had been thrown away so many times, privately, publicly, in overt ways and, you know, covert ways. And here this man was staying with me, and he was an illustration of that unconditional love of God, because I didn't believe God loved me either unless I was doing something right. Because one of my big traumas happened when the church threw me away, and so I thought God threw me away. So God throws you away, what hope is there, you know?
Mhm.
But he stuck with me, and through this and through God not giving up on me, he convinced me that he loved me, and it was over a long period of time because in that time frame of history, mental health was not something people recognized. Trauma
Yeah.
was not a word that people talked about. When they talked about trauma, it was war or, you know, some humongous, ginormous thing that certainly wasn't what I lived through. So I didn't have help. It was just me going, God, if you don't help me, we're all going to die, kind of thing. And he brought help from various places. I like kicked and screamed and grabbed and writhed and just grabbed for healing anywhere I could. And I long, long journey, which is part of what leads me into what I do is if you get the help you need, it doesn't have to take as long as it took me. If I would have been surrounded by the help that I have available now, that we have available in our world now. I mean, the world, they will recognize mental health. There's so much help available now, and I'm so glad for it. So you who are listening, if you need help, get help somewhere. If not from me, from Mesha. If not from Mesha, then find somebody, but get help. There is help. You don't have to deal with what you're dealing with alone.
Mhm. Yeah, most definitely. Because nobody is alone. That's my main thing I wanna get across is you are not alone in your
Mhm.
situation. There's somebody out there who understands what you're going through.
Yeah,
Um, can we talk a little bit about the church hurt?
sure.
You wanna tell your story about what happened? Because I feel that's a subject that's not talked about very often.
Well, actually, there are three different things, and it was more than one thing that happened to me
Mhm.
because there was church hurt, there is spiritual trauma, and there is religious trauma. 3
Mm,
different things, and I had all 3. The spiritual trauma happened to me when the church threw me away. When the church threw me away, I was, like, around 10 or something like that, and in front of the entire congregation, I was publicly rejected from membership. I had already been suffering from childhood emotional neglect, already felt like nobody wanted me, and I wasn't loved, so when I went through all the rigmarole to do whatever they required of me to become a member, I was so excited that day that I was gonna be accepted by them. I'm finally going to belong. I'm finally going to be loved. I'm finally gonna have a place. And I got the opposite. I got thrown away. They welcomed all the other kids who had been in the class, and they left me on the front row in front of the entire congregation, publicly rejected from membership by the pastor. And as a child, you look at the authorities in a much stronger way than when you're an adult. When a child when I was a child, I looked at my pastor and he was the stand-in for God. So when
mhm,
he did this in my little kid brain, I felt like God himself had rejected me. After I later went through my healing of that, it's chapter 9 in my book called Bullseye, because a bullseye is a highest point of achievement. It was my highest core trauma because spiritual trauma attacks you in the core of your existence.
Mhm.
You have existential issues. I said the word right. I trip over that word so many times. Existential. I felt like I did not have the right to draw breath. And for years, I tried to kill myself slowly because I believed that I needed to die and I needed to suffer. So that was the outcome of that particular trauma. The religious trauma comes when, through being taught things through the church of behavioral things and practices that cause reactions that are like PTSD. I lived in a state of pervasive fear for a very long time. I was afraid that every time I did something wrong, I had sinned. And if I didn't confess that sin before I died, I was going to hell. I lived in a pervasive fear of, as I wrote it in my journal, falling into outer darkness. And that's a whole different way of manifesting. And then in church hurt, that's when someone affects you in the area of community, in your relationships. It happens and it affects your relationships within the church. And I had reached out to try and connect with someone at a church I was going to. They had a group that they were getting together with. And so I'd been healing of things, I'd been getting better of things. And so I dared to ask to be included.
Mhm.
And they said no. And I had numerous things like that happen that were like that, but what that does is that affects your relationship with the body of Christ. So all 3 of those, I had them kinda interlaced together, and the Lord had to unravel them, like, think of tangled up Christmas lights that you get them out and you're like, "These are never coming apart," and some people throw them away. I felt like those tangled up Christmas lights, and people had thrown me away, but God took them and untangled them and made something good out of my life.
Yeah, I didn't even understand what church hurt was or any of that was until probably I wanna say probably the last 5, 6 years maybe?
I don't think they've
Um,
gotten words for them until the last few years.
okay,
Just
'cause I
like
know.
childhood emotional neglect,
Mhm.
my counselor didn't know that term. After I learned that term from Dr. Janice Webb, I called my counselor or emailed my counselor who had retired then just to know if she'd heard the term, and she had never heard the term. So I think some of our terminology is new to give us ways to communicate that. But I always like to say to whoever's listening, you don't have to know what it's called to heal from it.
Yeah.
You can heal from something without knowing what it's called.
Mhm.
It just helps bring clarity and understanding to learn terminology. I tend to shy away from all the jargon out there because it can feel very clinical and create space, and people don't understand it. And then their eyes glaze over and they stop listening. So I
Mhm.
like to break it down into, I was an emotional basket case. People can get a visual for that. Instead of
Yeah.
saying, I had emotional dysregulation.
Yeah, I would probably be like, "Huh?"
Yeah. See?
'Cause I don't know all the terminology for everything. I
Yeah.
mean, I know quite a bit because I worked at a, mental health clinic for a while as a case manager, so, I mean, I know quite a bit, but I feel like there's a diagnosis out there for everything,
Mhm.
and I'm like, "Okay, which one is that?" Because there's just
And
so
they
many
can
of
be
them, and I feel like a lot of them is just for the same thing or I
well,
don't
they
know.
can be helpful, but they can also be stifling depending on how
Mhm.
you internalize them.
Yeah.
Because some people can have a diagnosis and they can feel pigeonholed into that and then they can't do anything. For other
Mhm.
people, they learn, they go, "Oh, that explains a lot."
Yes.
And
And
that's
then
more
they
beneficial. So
Mhm.
you who are listening, if any of these labels are sticking you in a hole, throw it away.
Yep.
And if it
100%.
helps you go, "Oh, that makes sense," lean into that.
Mhm.
Learn so you can heal because you deserve to live a good life. God created you for abundant life. I know life on planet Earth, it's not automatic like that, but it is possible.
Mhm. Yeah. That's good, I like that. Yep. Agreed. Wow. So much. Um, yeah, when I moved to the South, because up north, there wasn't a whole lot of different type of churches. It was you just had, like, your select few that you had, um, for, like there was no non-denominational, I don't believe anyway, and if they did, it was new, and I didn't know nothing about it. So, moving down to the South, I'm like, "What kind of church is this? What kind of church is this?" I had no idea. I had to go to my friend. I was like, "Okay, these people are knocking on my door. Who are they and what do they want?" Because I had no
Yeah.
idea.
Well,
And,
it's
so
good
she
for you to be a little suspicious of that because a lot of people knock on doors that you don't wanna open the door to, so.
yeah, so she was, like, breaking down all the different types of religion and all the different type of churches and what they mean and everything, so I had no idea, but I had this, one church I was going to for a little while, and it was a very small church, and I'm not quite sure what happened. I just know, like, I was on the worship team, and I was like, "I can't sing this week." And everybody in the church kept coming to me instead of going to the pastors because I felt more comfortable coming to me, and they're like, "Will you talk to them about whatever it was?" And I'm like, "Well, why don't we just all sit down and talk together, you know?" But I guess they didn't like the fact that everybody kept coming to me. Anyway, they ended up writing me a really long letter over Messenger, and I was like, "Okay." And I kinda knew it was coming, but in it all I can remember them saying is how I was working for the devil and I was Satan himself. And I was like, "What in the world?" And, like, I was instantly traumatized, bawling my
Oh,
eyes out because I
man.
know myself. I know
Yeah.
that's not true at all, like, complete opposite person if anybody knows me. They know that that's a complete opposite and would wonder how anybody could get that anywhere, you know? And so I didn't wanna ever go to church again,
I can
'cause my
appreciate
thought
that. I'm so
was
sorry that happened to you.
yeah, and then so my thought was, "Okay, if all these pastors are saying that God led them to be a pastor, why would God let that person be a pastor and say that to somebody?" So I struggled so hard on going back to church, and I didn't wanna ever go to church again. I was like, "I'm never going to church again." I'm like, "This is ridiculous. I'll just read my Bible and have my relationship with God at home," and I still kinda struggle with going into church and, like, trusting it.
Mhm.
Um, but my husband at the time, he's like, "No, we're gonna find another church and we're gonna go to church," but it was just I don't know, I just kind of feel like it was just kind of a cycle of, like, how pastors are, like, they just get so consumed in their own little world. I don't know, it's just so weird. I don't know if it's just I don't know, I don't really know how to explain it, but the churches are just so big that everything just feels so disconnected.
Mhm.
And I don't know, I struggle with that, and it's hard to find small churches, I feel, in the South, 'cause everybody's just kind of gravitated to the larger ones, but
Mhm.
I don't know. I've just experienced, like, different types of things with the church, and it's
Yeah,
just
I can
we
appreciate
ha
we've been to a number of different churches, um, like the one I grew up in, then we stopped going. Then when we first got married, we were going to one church, and then we ended up going to another church,
Mhm,
and we moved to Arizona and went to a few churches out there and ended up staying at one after a while, and then we came back and God asked me would I, um, how did he put it? Let go of the familiar or something like that? So to go
mhm,
somewhere else, we went somewhere for a season, and then I started having some difficulty with something, and then went through a period of time where we didn't go to church at all, and then we wanted to be part of the corporate body again. My husband found a place for us to go, and it's I validate the difficulty with church, and I have sat under the religious trauma of, only serious Christians go to church. And if you're not there every time the doors are open, and don't forsake the assembling of yourselves together, you have to be at church, and all the scriptures that they pull out, and then they cater them to fit them. And when I was writing my first book, Emerging with Wings, I read a book called Pagan Christianity. At the
mhm,
beginning of that book, they warn you. Like the movie Matrix, there's a red pill and there's a blue pill. And they're saying, if you don't want to have your opinion changed forever, there's no going back. Do not read this book. I mean, they
Oh.
warn you at the beginning, and it is true. Because I read the book and I'm like, I went through so much of the back book going, no wonder I felt like that. No wonder well, that explains, well, it was an epiphany, like all over the place of
Mhm.
how the modern church has been formed and how it was at the beginning when Jesus first left. It wasn't, they didn't gather like they do now. And the
Yeah.
word church is supposed to be talking to a body of people, not a building. And sometimes people, they'll qualify that, and we've been so trained, I mean, for years and years and years to call that building a church, it's hard to not. It's like, what
Mhm.
else do you call it? It's like you don't know what else to call it, but the way that God designed it is the people are supposed to be the church.
Mhm.
That's the way it's supposed to be, but that's not the way it is out there. So we are part of a church. We've been there for It'll be 10 years this year. Has it been perfect? Absolutely not. Have I had trouble? Yes, I have. I've had a issue with the pastor and then called him on the carpet about it, but then he apologized. And now we've had a change of leadership there, and they're changing everything because it's a change of leadership. So it makes sense.
Mhm.
But the thing that I keep going back to is I want to be around other believers. And the things that matter the most to me about what I believe, are they upholding those things? Because I don't agree with everything that they say. I don't agree with
Yeah.
everything anyone says. And I tell people I don't agree with everything I say. Ask me next week and I might think something different than I think this week. So to give people that grace that they don't have to be perfect. I don't have to believe everything you believe, but
Mhm.
are the core things that we hold fast to, do we have those? And then something else, once we went back to church, my husband and I, we ask each other every week, do you want to go to church? And sometimes we stay home just to exercise that power of choice that I go because I want to, not because it's Sunday,
Yeah.
not
I
because I'm
feel
supposed to.
yeah. I feel like the strongest encounters that I have had, um, with building my relationship with God is when he had small gatherings at
Yeah.
somebody's house, and I used to go to those all the time, and that's when my faith was the strongest was during that time, and I think about that period of time in my life for all the time. I'm like, "Gosh, I wish I could just have that back," but I don't know. I don't know where all those people are now. A lot of them are PCSed, and because I live in a military town, a lot of them have moved away, but yeah,
Mm,
that was my favorite.
yeah. I was a part of a intercessory prayer group at one of the churches we went to, and I had never been a part of anything like that before.
Mhm.
And we were just on the same wavelength, to way to put it, when we were praying together, and I'd never felt anything like that. It was really beautiful. I loved it, and I have a couple of friends that I get together with, do devotionals with, but one particular one, we kind of reconnected a year and a half ago, and we get together. We've gone through a book together a couple of times, and we meet once a weekish on
Mhm.
Zoom or Google Meet or something like that, and we share and we pray together, and that's a really deep connection. It's very safe.
Yeah.
We share things with one another. We pray for one another, and that's what Jesus said when he says, "Where two or more are gathered in my name, I am there." That's we not forsaking the fellowship is to gather with people, like that small group you were talking about. It just
Mhm.
takes 2 of you, you and your husband, you know, find one other person. It doesn't have to be at the building, at the
Yeah.
building.
Yep.
I mean, I believe that there are people out there that say I'm wrong, and they would challenge me, but I don't think everyone has to go to church. I felt so validated in that when I read the book, A Fire in My Bones. It's the story about Eugene Peterson, written by another gentleman. Eugene Peterson is a man who did the message translation of the Bible.
Mhm.
Fascinating book. Oh, highly recommend it. It was so good. But he said he wouldn't be a pastor unless God called him to do that, and how he struggled through that, and he wouldn't go to church if he wasn't a pastor, and how the church, it's not for everybody. I'm like, a pastor saying that. That's
Mhm.
just, we need each other. We need to share our faith in the one who created us. That's what we need. And we need that genuineness, that realness, that unconditional love. Someone who will say, "Hey, I need to say this to you because I love you." And you know they love you, so you're listening.
Mhm. I know everybody always would tell me, "Get into a community group, get into a community group," and I'm like, "There's no group for me." I was always
Mm,
in between everything. Either I
mm,
was young and I had kids and I was in a relationship, so I wasn't single, or I was older and I wasn't married. I never fit into any group. I was
yeah,
literally just in between every single time I went to a different phase of my life, and I'm like, "There's no group for me." And
I
they're like,
understand that.
"Oh,
We
well,
tried
there's
that at
this
this
group."
place for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard, you know? It's like, I don't know, I feel like everything's always, um, based off, like, some book, which is good, but also married or young youth or single or something like that. Um, but I feel like there should be more groups for, other people, like, going through something,
Mhm,
or are healing or have gone through something,
mhm,
just so they can connect and so they can feel like they're not alone.
mhm. Could you lead a group? Would you want to or not
That's
want
what
to?
everybody says to me. They're like, "Why don't you
I
lead
don't
your
know,
own
start
group?"
when I thought of doing that, and it's like, "Oh, will anyone come to my group?" I understand that feeling. "I'm gonna do this. Will anybody come to my group?" I've done
Yeah.
them before, and it took me a long time. I went back to the ladies' Bible study at this church I'm at now, and I hadn't been to a ladies' Bible study in a many years, and I used to help lead it many years ago at a
Mhm.
church I was at, but because of all the stuff I went through, it's like, I don't know that I wanna do that." And then I finally went back because I met this one particular lady, she's on the prayer team, and it was last Christmas, my sister-in-law was doing really poorly, and I didn't want her to die on Christmas, so I went up for prayer, I said, "Please don't let her die on Christmas." And this lady, she prayed with me and that, and then she followed up with me.
Yeah.
It's like, I I didn't become invisible after she prayed for me.
Yeah.
Like, so many times it happens, and she was a part of this Bible study, so I'm like, "Hmm, I think I'll go because she's gonna be there."
Mhm.
Kind of
Yeah,
thing,
so
something that just gives you enough courage to take one little step.
yeah, and that's another thing I miss too. Because when I was younger and I went to church, I went to a really small church, and everybody would call you. They would call you up and be like, "Hey, there's this event, come on out." And they all knew that I had small kids and I wasn't married. They would help me with my kids. And I don't know, it's different. It's not like that here. And I don't
Mhm,
understand why, even if you do go to a small church, like, if they know something you're going through, why don't you call them, see how they're doing? Is there any way that we can help you or anything? It's like, that's not there. And I think that's what bothers me because that's what I'm used to. And I'm not
mm,
saying, nobody's like that. Um, you can just tell people in a church who are used to the old fashioned small churches where it's a community and everybody knows everybody
mm.
and everybody checks in with everybody. I feel you can definitely tell those people who've been in those type of churches or grown up in those type of churches and people who've never experienced that.
I feel like I've never experienced that.
Oh, really?
I've had small groups that have been a part of
Mhm.
that have been like that. When we lived in Arizona, we were a part of a home group, and, I'm still in contact with some of those people now, and we've been back here over 10 years. So, but that was from the small group, not the large church thing.
Mhm.
Both of the chapters from both of the chapters, both of the pastors from that church have passed, and that's
Mm.
really sad because they were younger than me.
Hmm. That's interesting that you never experienced that. I guess I never really thought about maybe that's why I just feel so disconnected
Mm,
and why everybody else just feels like church how it is just normal, because to me, it's not normal.
Mhm.
Hmm, interesting. I always learn something whenever I'm talking. I'm like,
Good, I always learn
"Oh, that
something
makes
too.
sense."
It's good to learn stuff.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Is there anything else that you wanna share with the audience?
We have covered so much.
I know.
I
Good
shared
though.
about my new book, my first book. I have other books, but I just want you who are listening, if you've been silenced by your past,
Mhm.
please take courage and speak up to someone. Listen to more of these or whatever you need to do so that you get your voice back. I got my voice back. First time my voice was attacked was when I was 6 years old. My first grade teacher taped my mouth shut and forced me to read in a reading group in front of the class.
Mm.
And I never told anyone until I was an adult, and it was still triggering me when I was in my 50s. But I have gotten my voice back. I was publicly shamed on a stage a number of times, but I love public speaking. So that's amazing. So if you are suffering and being silenced, there is healing available. Please get help. As I said a little bit earlier, please get help. Start wherever you're at. Start with listening to more podcasts, read a book, reach out to someone you know, reach out to Misha or I, but get some help because you deserve your voice because you matter. And I love you. I'm that lady on the internet who loves you.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. I really appreciate you being here.
Oh, we really got into some stuff I've never got in before, and I really enjoyed that, the whole thing about the whole church. I think people need to hear that, of
Mhm.
all the different challenges and that they're not alone in those challenges, and even that book, Pagan Christianity, if you wanna take I don't remember which pill was the the red or the blue, and I don't remember which one was which, but, yeah, it will change your perspective forever, so,
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much.
okay.
If today's episode spoke to your heart, be sure to follow me and follow Silent No Longer so you never miss a new episode filled with healing and hope. Please share this episode with someone who may need to hear it. You never know the impact it could have. If you're ready to take the next steps in your own healing, you can take my free quiz to see if you may be in a toxic relationship. Schedule a free clarity call with me or read my story in Behind Closed Doors. Thank you for listening to Silent No Longer. Your story isn't over and healing is possible.